I'm Joel McCower here at Studio C, talking with Don Sadoway, Professor of Materials Chemistry at MIT. Welcome, Don.
Hi.
You've just given us a story on stage about this innovation around battery storage, a breakthrough innovation, a radical change in how energy is stored in a way that we can then deploy it and make things like renewables more accessible. What have you learned about breakthrough innovation and how it happens along the way?
What I think made us have rapid progress here was that we had adequate funding to put together a huge team, and it was a team that consisted of people that were new to the field of energy storage. So they weren't just off the street; they were highly competent scientists. But they weren't jaded by previous knowledge of energy storage. So I didn't turn to others and try to understand what others had done in energy storage. I looked at it from a fresh perspective, brought in a large team of people that were new to the field.
So what kinds of people are we talking about?
Well, people that had primary degrees in material science, chemistry, physics, but we're not terribly well schooled in even electrochemistry. And so I taught them how to think about the problem, how to see it through my eyes, and then sent them on their course and mentored them, and they accomplished phenomenal things in a very, very short order because they were feeding off of each other. And so having that large group that are fresh to the field, I think that was the key here.
And of course, having the money to fund all of that.
Right.
So how can others think about that, the process that you went through? It's fascinating in terms of, because I would imagine that you could overshoot in terms of having too many newbies, novices in the topic, where you really spend so much time getting them up to speed that you never really make the progress. And then you obviously don't want to have the same old people, which is why you're bringing these people together in the first place. How do you think about that balancing act?
You've really captured it accurately. If you get too big, then it becomes hard to manage, and they may flounder. So I think we didn't hire them all on day one, and so we added people incrementally, and I think that was also part of the secret, that we didn't wait until we had all 20 and then launch the initiative. We were bringing them on in increments, and they were able to handle it.
So a lot of the kinds of things you're trying to do, and in some cases some of the exact same problems, but other problems in the sustainability and energy, water, material space are being worked on in the private sector.
Right.
And so is it possible to recreate that kind of collaboration that you've created at MIT to address this issue of battery storage? Is that something that the private sector can replicate?
Yeah, I think that you had the example of Bell Labs, where you had brilliant people, and in the old days they weren't tethered to one of the manufacturing divisions of AT&T, and you see over time a stellar record of innovation, winning of Nobel Prizes, and so on. So I think there are examples of where people know they can't just drink coffee all day and read newspapers, right. But they have the resources, and there are links in that institution of people that can collaborate on demand.
And you're working with private sector companies. Do you see that there are certain cultures that are more adaptable to this kind of work?
Yeah. I think it's set at the top. I've seen some large companies that are very rigid, and people in the rank and file that are understand boundaries in ways that are really stultifying. And then there are other cultures that are very, very open. So I think you can establish that. I can't say that in this sector of the economy it's more prevalent than that sector.
But can it work in either of those two extremes? Is it going to work in the sort of command and control kind of environment, or does it need to be somehow different?
Oh, I think it has to be different. I think if you have a command and control environment, people become very defensive and risk averse. Mm-hmm. I think people need to know that they're being supported, and that if they falter, Well, we'll try to learn from that. If the penalty for failure is termination, then you're going to see people taking a defensive posture, and you're not going to have people shooting for the stars.
High risk, high reward.
No.
Yeah. So a lot of companies have managed this by creating these sort of Skunkworks, where they have where they've taken this and off-site,
Yes.
and to develop a project that's been sheltered, I guess, or isolated from the rest of the company, sometimes for secrecy reasons,
Yeah.
but a lot of times just for the ability to just get away from the daily stuff. Is that something, again, thinking in the private sector, a model more companies should be thinking about?
It depends. I mean, getting away from the daily stuff. I mean, think about, I had these people working at MIT on campus. Some of them were graduate students, had to take classes and then get back in the lab and be thinking beyond the boundaries. So I think you can create the atmosphere of the Skunkworks and still have to attend to some of the administrative needs. I think it's really the attitude of the management that pervades the organization.
So you're saying that collaboration and innovation is not, particularly innovation, isn't necessarily sort of a bolt from the blue or a rabbit out of a hat. It's something that can be managed, and you can manage for a culture to be more innovative.
Yes, yes. You provide a fertile environment in which discovery can take place, and where there's a rich conversation, so that people can try ideas out on one another and make it nurturing, and that's what I find works.
And out of that, beautiful things happen.
Yes.
Great. Thanks so much, Don.
You're welcome.